Coming up on today's episode of Real Talk Rentals, we're going to talk about friends and family, specifically the issues in dealing with them in property management. Welcome back to Real Talk Rentals, a podcast brought to you by OnQ Property Management. We're here to give you all the tips and tricks that go into owning a rental property. My name is Ben. With me, as always, Mr. Eric Dixon, go-to expert on all things rental property and real estate. That's just how I refer to you now at all times when I talk, because I say it every week. So now when I talk to my wife, I'm like, yeah, Eric Dixon, the go-to expert.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Feels so good.
This episode, we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot, actually, in what we do in one way or another. And that's friends and family. I realize now that I titled this episode Friends and Family Issues, and it sounds like I'm like mad at my parents or something. But what we're actually talking about is there's so many different steps, so many different people that can be involved when it comes to renting a property. And a lot of people, for obvious reasons, use friends and family. And we're going to kind of walk through the pitfalls and the advantages and everything about that we see on our end. So, Eric, let's start. I'm going to kick it to you. This is probably the most common way that we see friends and family interacting when it comes to rental properties. And that is somebody rents out their property to a brother, a sister, a cousin, whoever. We have somebody here who rents to their father, so this happens a lot. What are the pitfalls of this?
Well, so this is funny because there's so many ways the friends and family could get involved. Could be your property manager, could be somebody you rented to, could be the handyman, could be whatever. And it's just, there's the dynamic, right? That it can go south fast or it can be great. So kind of pros and cons, right? I would say the pros are the things that are great is that you've got this relationship. So you would think you've got trust, you've got, hey, I know this person. They would never do anything bad, and you want to help them out 100%. So if you want to rent out to, it's like, I've known Ben for 5 years. Hey, you'd be a great tenant, but it's just, there's this gray area that happens, over time that you have to get through. I'd say another pro would be payment. I'm just going to use the example. Ben's renting from me. It's like, hey, Ben, cash only, under the table. You could do Zelle or Venmo, or, hey, I usually are going to get my rent on the 1st from you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it in my bank account on the 1st, so payment is going to be a little bit delayed if you have a third party property manager.
Sure.
Because it's got to clear the account, then they have to send you funds and it could take a week or whatever. And then the other pro, potentially, these are the great things, right? Is there's no middleman. So it's direct contact.
Right.
But as I was thinking about this yesterday, like, hey, this is going to be the topic. I'm like, those are also the cons, right?
Right. Yeah. The same list.
The same list. You've got relationship.
Yeah.
You have a relationship. So that could be bad. You've got payment, could be bad. If they don't pay you, then it's like, dude, this is awkward, man. Why'd you make this awkward?
Yeah.
And then the no middleman could be a con, could be bad because there isn't somebody that is separating the relationship. Right. So I'd say the good and the bad, just like anything else, it could work out great. And you're like, I don't know why you'd ever hire a property manager, or I don't know why you'd, rent to somebody random. Just throw it on your Facebook page and rent it to somebody
Yeah.
It could go great. So
it could.
but it could be bad. So you mentioned, so we have an employee that rents to their father. We've got another employee who rents to a former employee.
Yeah.
We've got a current employee that rents to a current employee.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one until just now. So we have that one. But we also have an owner. I signed him up years ago, hired us to evict their son.
Yeah.
We've had divorce issue. We've had, a husband rents to their ex-wife and now wants her gone. You've got crazy dynamics. And at the end of the day, they hire us to get in the middle of it. And then as soon as that's done, they're like, hey, let's rent it to somebody on the open market.
Sure.
I'm done with the relationship part of it.
Yeah. I feel like we're always talking about in this podcast is you got to take the emotion out of it, right? Treat it like an investment, take the 100%. Emotion. If you know the person, it's impossible, right? The emotion's going to be there. And obviously to us, that's a bad idea. It may work out great in some situations. I know tons of people it does, but the emotion's always going to be there. And I kind of give you the example yesterday when we were chatting about this, that like if I owe $500 on a bill, I'm going to pay that bill on the due date.
Yeah.
If I owe my parents $500, I might be like, yeah, I'll get them a next paycheck.
Yep.
No big deal. Like it's mom and dad. They don't care.
No,
And it's not even
exactly.
a malicious thing. It's just when there's that, I know them. I know their
Yep.
financial situation. They're fine.
Yeah.
Like
It
I
doesn't
can
matter
get
if
it
it's
to
on the
them.
1st or the 10th. It's fine.
Yeah, they'll get it.
Yeah.
They know I'm good for it, so it's fine. But you wouldn't do that, if I wouldn't do that with my current landlord. She knows I'm good for it. I'll get it
Yeah.
to her when I get it to her, because it's not that same relationship.
Yeah.
It's a business relationship.
And to your point, so the good and the bad, there's two different columns. It's like emotionally and stress and all that, but it's also financially. Most of the time, what we see at least is when you do rent to a family member, a friend, somebody, someone who knows somebody, you also give them a deal. And so it's like double whammy. It's like, dude, this is
Yeah.
stressful and emotional, and man, this is hard. And I rent it for 20% below market rate,
Yeah.
And it'd be one thing if it's like, hey, I rent to friends and family, but it's market rate. At least you're getting market rate, right?
Yeah.
But usually I've seen it hundreds of times, literally, where month after month after month, you're giving them a deal, and then the tenant also expects you to provide all these other things. And
Sure.
there's just so much gray area. I mean, my advice is if you're in the middle of that now, just commit now to going on the open market next time, whether
Yeah.
it's through a management company like us or by yourself. Like, just go on the open market.
Yeah.
You'll get market rate, and then you'll have that buffer, between.
All right. So next most common situation that we see is maintenance. And that
Oh,
is
yeah.
like, hey, the property's got a leak. My brother's a plumber. Or my brother's not even a plumber. My brother's really handy. He's not a
Yeah.
certified plumber.
Hey, if they're a
But
certified plumber, yeah, that's totally different.
that's totally
Yeah.
different. But it's like, hey, he knows how to fix this stuff. I'm going to send him over there. Why is that obviously a bad idea?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, number one rule with maintenance without that scenario is always use a licensed, insured contractor.
Right.
So to your point, if my brother is a plumber, he's licensed and everything, it's like, hey, sweet, he'll probably actually give me a deal and he's licensed. Hey,
Yeah.
that's fine. But our requirements are licensed and insured. They've got to provide a W-9. They've got to provide a certification of insurance. Their licensing as a bare minimum to touch the property, right? And we've had example over example of how that's helped and saved the owner and saved the property because of issues. But the number two rule right behind that one is if you're not using or do not use that Craigslist Wonder or that referral from somebody that's just like,
Yeah.
oh, he's super handy, he's the best, it's only $50 or $100 and they'll do it.
Yeah.
And you don't even say, are you licensed, are you insured? Just don't use that guy. Like,
Yeah.
for sure.
You get what you pay for, usually.
Yeah, and whether it's month to month, you get what you pay for, or if it's down the road.
Yeah, it might come up later and bite you. I would say too, like even outside of this industry and what we've seen here, I would be hesitant to use, even if my brother is a licensed plumber, because things happen, right? And you don't want to bring in like a bad blood where it's like you
Yeah.
both feel like you're not at fault, but it's like, hey man, you screwed me out of $10,000 because the place
Yeah.
flooded,
Yeah.
and maybe it wasn't his fault, but you don't need to bring that into a relationship.
No,
you know?
it's super tough, man. And then aside from that, even if they're great, it just makes it awkward. It's like, hey man, this is my investment. You fix the plumbing, but like it's still broken.
Yeah.
Can you go back and fix it? It's under warranty. And it's like, all right, Ben, now you're taking advantage of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I would do this with any plumber.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would hold them to their warranty terms,
Yeah.
The other reason that I just thought of is the legitimacy of the contractor is important for invoicing and your expenses for when you do
Mhm.
taxes and for when you're tracking things. Super tough to track, giving somebody $50 on the side to pay an unlicensed vendor versus paying somebody on a legit invoice. It has their license number on the invoice. If you ever got audited by the IRS or whatever, you're like, no, this is a legit plumbing invoice. And no, paying somebody by Zelle or Venmo is like,
Yeah.
it's just a bootleg way to do it. You'll save a few bucks, but in the long scheme of things, it's not worth it.
Yeah. You'll cover yourself too by using that insured, licensed contractor. I remember I worked in restaurants for a long time, and we would build new restaurants, and you would always see these like mom and pop places that would build up, and you wouldn't even think about it, but in the restrooms and bathrooms, they have the diaper changing
Yeah.
thing, right? No contractor will touch it. There are special licensed people that put that in because
Yeah.
they're like, I'm not going to be the guy that bolts that to a wall and
Yep.
then it falls with
And
a
then
baby on it.
exactly. Yep.
So you literally have to hire a special guy. That's all they do.
No, that's super
And
interesting. Yeah.
they're covered for that. Like, so
Well, and
we've seen all sorts of stuff here. We've seen, with a contractor, a technician we don't use anymore, but a place burned down.
oh yeah, dude. No, I was gonna say that example is still in my mind because it was only like a year ago, but it's like it was a legit licensed, bonded, insured contractor, technicians, very professional. Freak accident. I
Yeah.
was soldering a shower, I think, or doing something in the bathroom, and it caught the insulation on fire, burned the fourplex down.
Yeah.
So you've got 4 units uninhabitable, but they were licensed, bonded, insured, opened a claim. Tenants got, it ended up being fine. It
Yeah.
was
The
just a
insurance
freak
took care of
accident.
it.
But can you imagine if the owner hired a bootleg handyman
Yeah.
and they burned the place down?
He was like, that's my brother. He just had a blowtorch. So I asked
Yeah.
him to do it.
Dude,
He
and it's
scorpion
like-
hunts with that thing. So
Yeah.
I said, bring it over and fix the shower.
No, but it's just like, dude, that's a freak accident. And if that guy wasn't licensed,
Yeah.
he'd say sorry, but it's the property owner that's like, oh, dang. Like, not only does he not have insurance, my insurance may not cover it because I didn't hire a licensed contractor.
Right.
So, that could be bad. We had a flood that a flooring contractor that we used unhooked the washer dryer, replaced the flooring.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the next day we came back and there's 2 inches of water everywhere. And they incorrectly unhooked the water and didn't check, and it pressurized and something happened. And they had insurance, and it was a licensed, bonded, insured subcontractor, and they covered it, and
Yeah.
we moved on. And the owner was really cool about it. He's like, well, as long as I get my lost rents, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I get new flooring and new baseboards and new paint. And he's like, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for using a legitimate contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next scenario. Let's say I own a couple rental properties. I'm busy, but I know my sister is not. She's at home. She's chilling. I say, hey, why don't you manage these for me? Why don't you run these? And this sounds absurd, but we see it. We see people. We have a guy whose mother-in-law managed a bunch of properties for him.
Yeah, we just signed that. So the one you're talking about, yeah, just signed them on, and they've been self-managing for years. And it's just like, no, my mother-in-law needs to stop managing my properties.
Yeah,
Like,
we're talking double-digit not 1 or 2. This guy's got a lot of properties,
and it's to save, I don't know, as far as the whole portfolio is concerned, pennies, man.
Yeah.
I mean, as a percentage of gross rent, you're like, you are losing out on so many things. But I asked myself the same thing. It's like, it's not a licensed insured contractor, but is your sister a licensed, like in Arizona, you have to be a licensed real estate agent or a licensed brokerage to do property management. So
right.
Are they licensed? Do they have the credentials? Do they have the E&O insurance, the errors and emissions insurance in case she screws up? Like, is she
Right.
going to cover it? No, she's going to say, hey, sorry, brother. I'm not a legit manager. Like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah.
And I'll go, well, I'm so glad I saved the $20 a month difference, right? Like there was one specific that owner that was paying a family member to do it, very similar to how much they pay us now to manage it. And it's like, you're talking about tens of dollars a month saved per property. And is the difference between a sibling doing it to kind of help them out versus a professional property manager. So, I mean, I would just say same thing as the contractor, just make sure they're licensed, and your relationship with that person, I have to think, is worth more than saving a few bucks.
Absolutely.
And if you're trying to help them out, help them find a job.
Yeah.
Don't make them your property manager.
Or if they work for a property management company, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would think, to me, I would say, my brother came to me and say, yeah, for sure, I'm going to have Eric manage your property, who I work with. You will talk to him about this.
Yeah.
You and I are never going to talk about this, but we'll take care of you.
Yeah.
We'll set you up and be in good hands. Because why bring that in? I get along with my mother-in-law, and the idea of her managing anything for me is terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and it's mostly because you don't want that to come between you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like any repair or issue, and you're like, dude, that's awkward. This is just, don't make it weird, man. So,
I have a good friend. This is another kind of horror story, but he recently moved and bought a new house, decided to keep his current house. He lives on the same street as me. So he was keeping that house on the street and renting it out. met with On Q, met with some property managers. Then all of a sudden, a buddy of his was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
this is the guy that, yeah, he ended up not signing up
yeah,
with
he
us,
didn't
right?
sign with
Okay,
us,
okay.
no hard feelings, whatever." And I got a friend who's just going to move in. He needs a place, and I was like, "I don't know if you should do that, man," but okay. So the other day, I come home. This was like a week ago, and the front garage door. I mean, it looks like the guy ran into it with the car. Like it is completely, which is probably what happened,
Oh, yeah.
completely dented
Backed
in.
into it, yeah.
So I text my buddy like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but your garage door has been hammered, it's destroyed." He's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" The
Yeah.
guy didn't tell him. Comes down, looks at it. He's, him and Han, and then he came over and talked to me and says, "Yeah, he doesn't have the cash right now, but when he does, he's gonna fix it."
And
And
you're
it's
like,
like,
you know how
dude,
that's gonna play out. Yeah.
yeah, like you wouldn't in a normal transaction situation make that exception. If
Yeah.
somebody drove through a part of your house, you would be like, "Man, you got to fix that and fix it
Yep.
now."
Yeah, and then like we have that, right? Where that exact scenario, if it was through a management company, maybe the neighbor doesn't call us, but the HOA is going to hit us up. The owner's going to get a violation. Hey, your garage door is messed up. Then we get to the tenant. We enforce the lease.
Yeah.
Whereas him, dude, unfortunately, the tenant is like puppeteering the owner's emotions.
Yeah.
Like, hey, sorry, I don't have the money right now, man. I promise I'm good for it. And they're
Yeah.
probably giving him a deal on rent.
For sure. Yes.
So
100%.
it's just like, dude, you
Yeah.
feel for those owners, man. They're getting taken advantage on the financial
Yeah.
part, and now again financially on the garage door.
And he's just a good guy, and I know would never, he's the kind of guy that'll just grin and bear it. And it's
Yeah.
like,
It's
man,
like,
I
yeah.
just want to be like, come here, just sign up. Just you're not saving
Next
that
time.
much.
It
I
sounds
promise
like
you.
it sounds like we've got him next time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Right. We'll remind him. All right. So last scenario I wanted to touch on, and this one obviously you know a lot about, and I would think can be a very positive experience. And that's using for buying and purchasing real estate,
Oh, yeah.
using friends or family, whether that's investment properties or just real estate in general.
Yep.
Do you think there's downsides to that?
Yeah, so I'd say yes and no. Like in all things, and I have to think of all of the friends and family who have used me. So it's like, well,
Sure.
yeah, using friends and family is great.
Yeah.
But it would be, the caution is, especially as you're investing in rental properties, is just making sure that the agent that you're using, if you're related to them or they're friends and family or whatever, that's totally fine. They can earn that commission, they can do that, but make sure they understand what buying an investment is versus buying like your primary residence.
Yeah.
And both of them, it's a real estate transaction. I get it, but there is more that goes into it, and it's not
Right.
very complicated. But it's, we see it all of the time, especially with right now in Arizona. There's new builds going up everywhere.
Yeah.
And we get these owners that are like signing up with our service. I have this brand new property. I'm excited to rent it out. They sign up, and then we talk about comps, rental comps, the comparables of what your market rate is going to be. And they're like, yeah, we'd like to start at $3,000 a month. And we're like, oh, well, here are the rental comparables. And it's actually like 2,400.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. My real estate agent said you could for sure get 3,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, your real estate agent has no idea what the crap they're talking about.
Yeah. Because they don't do it every day.
Because they don't do it. And it was not malicious, I'm sure.
Sure.
They probably threw it up in Zillow. Rent estimate was this, or
yeah,
they kind of said, yeah, my friend rents a house around the corner with that, but they don't realize that their friend's house has a pool and 5 bedrooms instead of 3 or whatever.
Sure.
Right. And agents are not malicious about it. They're just excited and they're getting a deal done, and they're trying to get pen to paper and get that commission, but just make sure that if your agent's not doing it for you, there are agents that do. I feel like we do a great job at it, but let's say you still want to use your friend, at least determine the rental rate and all that stuff before you were fully committed.
Sure.
Get with the property manager, say, hey, I'm buying this house. What is this going to rent for? There's a lot of heartache will be avoided.
Yeah.
We have some that say, that example I was giving you, they start at 3,000 and we lowered $100, lowered 100. And it finally rents out at what we told them it would at 25 or whatever.
Sure.
And then they're like, man, I'm upside down on my mortgage payment that I thought I was going to be making 500. I'm upside down 100.
Yeah.
And I would have never bought this place or whatever. And then it creates this animosity and stuff. So I would just say investing in a rental property is a little bit different than taking your family around looking for your primary residence.
100%.
Looking for your primary residence, it's an emotional decision. Sure, it's financial, but a lot of it's emotion. It's
Yeah.
school district. It's how close you are to your parents, your work, your friends. When it's an investment as a rental, you do look at school districts, you look at crime, you look at a couple things, but it's less about that and more about return on investment, long-term appreciation.
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. And so your agent needs to understand the numbers game.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
You told me this yesterday and it blew my mind, but that, we'll have people that are owners with us and they'll call and they'll say, hey, I'm going to buy this property. My real estate agent, can you just wants you guys to run comps and send them over to him? And it's
dude,
no, hang on. Like, that's what he should be doing, or she.
Hey, the licensed agent that's helping me on the buy doesn't know how. So can I ask you, the licensed agent, to run my rental comps for me? And we're happy to do it. Sometimes it gets out of hand. We'll get a list. Hey, these 7 houses we looked at today, can you tell me the best deal? And it's like, hey, look, we're not representing you on the buy.
Right.
So, it is touchy, and we don't want to step on toes, dude. The licensed agent community here in Arizona is fantastic. They're supportive of property managers. It would never speak illy of them.
Yeah.
But they need to either learn how to do that or get out of the rental investment game, and just focus on the primary residence stuff. But they're great. And it's not that complicated. It's just, as the investor, you guys listening, make sure you know those numbers going into it. And so it's not a surprise, when you're going to put it for rent and you're like, man, I'm out of the range, I'm out of the ballpark, but I've already bought the property.
Yeah. And we see that. And it's like you said, they end up being upside down. And it's like, man, what a bummer, Yep. Okay. Hopefully we haven't turned people off too much from
friends and family. Friends and family are great.
They're great.
I feel like we're kind of counselors right now. We're like, stay away from friends and family,
Yeah. But this is, all these examples are real world examples that we see here, all the time. And
I'm guilty of it even right now. Like now, of rentals, right? I have a couple of tenants that are personal friends or whatever. And this is not speaking bad of that. It's just like, no, there are potential issues. Right?
Sure.
There's this gray area of like, well, do they know they're getting a good deal? I expect certain things. And it's like, that's not fair to either me or the tenant.
Yeah. They show up to the park and you're like, that's a nice new car you got. And I'm paying you $500. You're paying me $500 below market rate. Like, kind of those kind of things. You don't want to bring those into a friendship.
Yeah. No, and I've been lucky where it hasn't turned into issues, but the bad issues are ones that our company has taken on. And it's like, we're evicting family. Or they're 100%. They're hiring us to have the hard conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? That's not fair.
No. We'll do it, but that's not fair.
But that's messed up.
Yeah. All right. That's it for us this time. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening and leave us 5 stars if you can. It really helps out. And we will see you guys next time.